Why do firstborn daughters have the highest rate of failed relationships? And what can you do as a firstborn daughter? If you've had people say the eldest daughter syndrome, what is that? Are you one of them? Are you an elder child? Do you hold that office? If this is you, today, I want us to have a little heart-to-heart conversation. Hey, friend. Welcome to the Rise and Rebuild podcast. This is your space to breathe again. A space for women of color, single women, and single mothers to finally feel seen, deeply supported, and reminded that you don't have to do this journey alone. My name is Lydia, a certified life coach and founder of Break the Cycle Global and a proud cycle breaker. Around here, we don't just talk about life. We get real about it. The messy, the magical, and everything in between. From breaking unhealthy cycles to mastering your mindset, navigating relationships, parenting, career, money, faith, healing, and so much more. This is where we rebuild when life doesn't go as planned. I know what it's like to feel stuck because I've been there. And now, my heart beats for women like you, ready to rise up and embrace love, abundance, and confidence. So whether you're carrying painful wounds, facing another hard season, or simply ready for a fresh start, you are in the right place, my friend. Grab your coffee, warm your tea, and welcome home. Because this is where we break, heal, and rebuild together. Hey friend, welcome back to another episode of the Rise and Rebuild podcast. This is your host Lydia, and I am so glad you tuned in today. Happy Wednesday you are, or whatever day it is you're watching or listening to this episode. And I know it's February already. Happy February. Well. Today's episode is going to be great for firstborn daughters, so stick around. But before we do, I just want to celebrate all of you. Thank you so much. We just hit 200 subscribers in less than 6 months of starting this channel. Guys, I know it may look very little, but I am really over the moon because when I started this channel, I had no idea anyone would want to listen to me. I had no idea people would be interested in what I have to say. And so I am just so glad that you're sticking around. So thank you. I don't take you for granted. May God bless you. And I hope that you continue to receive the healing and clarity you need from this channel. But if you haven't subscribed and you're listening, you come back every week, you don't subscribe, please, I want you to subscribe. That way, you help me grow, you help yourself grow, and you also help another woman discover this channel and continue to also break cycles and grow. All right. So if you've been listening for a while, I want you to go ahead and subscribe. Go to Spotify, like it, leave me a review, go to Apple Podcasts if you use Apple, and do the same. I love you dearly. So thank you. The other announcement is, it's February and I always have good things for you in store. So this month, the Love Rewired Bootcamp is live and it is back in full swing. If love is in your books for 2026, you don't want to miss this. So go ahead and join us. The link to do that will be right in the show notes. So today I want to cycle back to the firstborn daughter conversations we had a while back, and I want to really unpack something. Why do firstborn daughters have the highest rate of failed relationships? And what can you do as a firstborn daughter? If you've had people say the eldest daughter syndrome, what is that? Are you one of them? Are you an elder child? Do you hold that office? If this is you, today, I want us to have a little heart-to-heart conversation. I am a firstborn daughter, and so what I'm going to tell you is just not book knowledge. It is my lived experience as well. I have struggled with many of the wounds eldest daughters carry, especially in relationships, and especially in romantic relationships. So if this episode feels personal, just know it is. And I know right now, with all certainty, that a lot of firstborn daughters are either struggling in relationships right this moment as I speak, or they have a long trail of relationships that didn't work out. And the question is, why? And no, contrary to public opinion, it's not because as a firstborn daughter, you're too much. It's not because you're masculine. as you've had people say. It's not because you're controlling or intimidating or you're hard to love. It is because of how you were configured long before you ever chose love for yourself. This is what people call the eldest daughter syndrome, or the EDS. But it goes deeper than psychology. In my opinion, it's more spiritual, more emotional, and more generational than you ever think. So let's unpack it together. Firstborn daughters were trained to become leaders long before they were taught how to rest. Most of us didn't get the luxury of being children, just being a child and playful and all that. No, we didn't get that. From a very young age, we learned how to help out. We were the little helpers at home. Learned how to step in when our parents were tired. We learned how to manage people's emotions, our parents included. We learned how to protect our siblings. We learned how to carry responsibility that did not belong to us. We had to become the strong ones far too early. And so by the time you as a firstborn daughter is entering marriage or a long-term relationship, you don't come in as someone learning how to build a home. You come in as someone who already knows how to run a home. It's not natural for you as a firstborn daughter to be held, poured into, or taken care of. What feels natural is you holding things together. And so you come in ready to run that home, not to learn how to build it. You already know how to, right? And because of that configuration, you often attract men who want to be held more than they want to hold things down for you. So you carry the emotional load in relationships. You carry the vision of that relationship, unintentionally most of the time. You carry the relationship itself. And if your guess is as good as mine, you already know how this dynamic usually plays out. The woman gets tired of holding everything up. Resentment starts to show up. You lose respect for the man. You have zero regard for his feelings anymore. And the attraction slowly fades away. And then the man falls back because he's not ready to step up because you've been doing that. And after carrying somebody for so long, you either walk away or you stay there while deeply resentful. But remember how this relationship started. You came in already configured to run a home. This is why many firstborn daughters get tired of men, not because something is wrong with you, but because carrying masculine weight without support drains you. It can drain anyone, not just firstborn daughters. It's a lot of weight to just carry by yourself. That is one. The other thing is most firstborn daughters struggle with the father wound. Many of us, we were exposed to the nakedness of our fathers. Not physically, don't get me wrong, but emotionally, we were exposed to the ugly side of who our father was or our father figures. We saw too much too soon. We had things we didn't need to hear or we shouldn't even have heard about. We were told things by our mothers or mother figures that we were not even ready to carry. And not because our mothers were evil, it is just because they were also hurting from having to carry this man. It's generational. So if your mother carried your father or there was an imbalance there when it came to the relationship, the same gets passed to you. And so without realizing it, you and I as firstborn daughters were trained and emotionally baptized into dealing with the same kind of man our mother was dealing with or our mothers were dealing with. So early on, you learned to understand men through disappointment, often at your own expense. You learned that men will always let you down because you saw your mom being let down. You learned that men need managing because your mother used to manage your father. You learned that men need fixing because you saw your mother try to fix your dad. And later in life, you either choose that same man or that pattern or you recreate it. Because why? We are often drawn to what feels familiar. And then when this dynamic now creeps into your romantic relationship, it slowly cripples them. Over time, the relationship becomes strained, exhausted you become, and eventually it is prone to breaking down. That is about the father wound and how it impacts your relationship as a firstborn daughter. Then there's what we call the mother wound. being the parentified child too early. Many firstborn daughters, it's not a secret. We never got the space to just be kids. We were deputy mothers. Our mothers were so tired and drained, overwhelmed, burnt out. And so we stepped in. And especially if you were raised by a single mother, like I was raised by a single mama, I often became the helper, the emotional support, the stabilizer, everything. And so for some of us, we ended up becoming our mother's surrogate husbands, meaning we stepped into the roles that our fathers or father figures should have filled. And without realizing it, we learned a distorted version of love, one where the woman does the heavy lifting. You get it? So you saw your mama do everything from A to Z in the home. And so you grew up believing, if mama can do that alone, I can too. And now, at the slightest conflict or discomfort in your own dating or marriage life or relationship, guess what? You throw up your hands and default to, hey, I don't need a man. Anyway, if my mama did it, I can do it on my own. Well, some people may call that empowerment, but let me tell you, from my own perspective and a coach's point of view, that is a trauma response. It is rooted in what you saw growing up. You see the hyper independence your mother had to embody to survive. That is what you're carrying and perpetuating now. That is how the mother wound can really impact your relationships. Another reason why many firstborn daughters have failed relationships is because submission for them or for us is something else entirely. For a firstborn daughter, let me explain this. Submission flows where there's safety. We don't just submit to anything. And let me not minimize that. But when you're constantly carrying a man emotionally, mentally, financially, spiritually, it almost becomes impossible for you to submit to him. Not because you're stubborn, but because your body is saying, I don't feel covered here. I don't feel safe here. So how do I submit? Your brain, your mind, everything in you does not reconcile that. And a lot of men, that becomes a deal breaker. Not always because the firstborn daughter is hard to submit or hard to love, but because now the relationship at this point is exposing what is missing, what is lacking. There's lack of leadership, there's lack of stability, there's lack of emotional maturity, there's lack of consistency. So instead of the man doing the work to grow, to heal, to learn how to lead with love, some men would rather just walk away. They would rather end the relationship than face the reality that this woman won't survive on words alone. She needs some capacity. She needs some leadership, right? And I know the topic of submission can be very polarizing, especially when it's coming from religious beliefs and spirituality. But let me say this, submission doesn't have to feel so hard when, as a firstborn daughter, you are married or you're dating somebody that is providing leadership as they should. It is not supposed to feel like labor. It is not. In my own experience, if submission feels like something you as a daughter, as a woman, you have to force, explain, justify, or chisel, so that you can submit or find a reason to submit, something is off, because submission is not supposed to feel like labor. I will leave it at that. Another thing many firstborn daughters don't say out loud, many firstborn daughters would rather be single than be in a relationship where they have to parent a grown man. By the way, firstborn daughters are not afraid of commitment. We love commitment. We love to stay. We love to stick around for so long. We are just afraid of exhaustion. Because when we've spent our whole life holding people and things together, the last thing we want is a partner who becomes another responsibility. We don't want projects again. We have always had projects at home growing up. And now we don't want to parent. We don't want to end up becoming our husbands or our partners' surrogate mothers. We don't want to be the people that are motivating them, managing their emotions, carrying the vision of the relationship. And before we know it, we very fast fall into the role of surrogate mothership. We don't. And before we even realize it, this man slips into the position of a son and not a partner. And not because you wanted that, but because this is the role you were trained to step into. Here's the part that hurts the most, actually, when you're parenting somebody, especially a man. You can't truly desire them. You can't. You cannot even have a vision with them. You cannot feel safe within and with them as well, because the desire just, I don't know, disappears or something, because you're not being loved. You're now leading here. And over time, unless that dynamic changes, the relationship doesn't just struggle, it slowly dies a very slow, painful death. Okay? So what do you do? So here are a few things I want you to do. 1, stop leading with capability and start choosing from capacity. What do I mean? You see, firstborn daughters often choose partners or men based on potential alone instead of capacity. Potential is good and fine and cute, but ask yourself, does this man have the capacity, the emotional capacity, the spiritual capacity, the practical capacity to lead you, to cover you, and to grow with you? Potential is good. I have nothing against potential. But if you're going to choose on potential alone, then you're setting up yourself for failure. Love is not built on intention alone. That is cute. It is also built on follow through. If you constantly have to explain yourself, push somebody, remind them, motivate them, manage them, that's not partnership, that is labor. Number 2, firstborn daughters, learn to pause instead of rescue all the time. You are fixers by default. And so I want you to think about this. When something starts going wrong, you'd want to jump in, but I want you to pause. You'd want to help. You'd want to explain. You want to smooth it over. You want to make it work. You want to not give the silent treatment as well. You want to be just the one that is saving the relationship. But I want you to start pausing and asking yourself, if I don't step in right now, what happens? Will the relationship fall? If the relationship collapses or crumbles without your effort, then that is your sign that you are not being loved. You are just being propped up. And my friend, God never designed for you to be the glue holding a grown man together in the relationship alone. No. While on that same topic, the third thing is redefine submission as safety, not silence. Submission is not shutting down your voice. It is not you tolerating inconsistency. It is not you enduring emotional neglect in the name of being a good woman, a Proverbs 31 woman. Biblically, I've read my Bible, I know, submission flows where there is covering. And so if you don't feel emotionally safe, spiritually supported, or consistently led, you may resist and your body knows that something is off. So think about that. The third thing is grieve the version of love you had to survive with growing up. This is where most of us never really do anything about. We grew up too fast. We carried adult responsibilities too early. We learned love through sacrifice and softness. And until we grieve that, until we really mourn that lost childhood, we will keep recreating it and shaming ourselves. So what do we do now? Tell yourself the truth and let God help you reparent the places that learned love through survival. And the final thing is choose differently, even when it feels unfamiliar. Sometimes healthy love will feel very boring at first if chaos was your normal. Consistency might feel very suspicious. Peace may feel undeserved because you never felt that growing up. That unfamiliarity doesn't mean it's unsafe. Sometimes the cycle breaks when you choose the man who does not need managing, the man who does not drain you, the man who does not confuse chemistry with chaos, and that requires a lot of discernment, not desperation. So choose carefully, not from desperation. Be very discerning when you're making these long-term choices. Firstborn daughter, that is how you start to rewire your love patterns. You are never meant to be the strongest one in your relationship. You are never meant to be the one holding everything together. You are meant to be supported too. And you don't need to carry love to make it work. You need a love that meets you fully. And that, my darling, is what rewiring looks like. Okay? So I don't know whether you resonate with any of these things that I've said, but if you do, I want you to go back and listen to this. Look at your own relationships. Look at the way you're showing up in your current relationships. Because a lot of your relationships are not failing because you're too much, as I've said. They are not failing because you're masculine. They are not failing because you're hard to love. They are failing because you are carrying, and you still are carrying roles you are not meant to carry. You are trained to lead before you are trained and taught how to rest and receive and be led. You learned love through responsibility and not through somebody else being responsible for you. So you keep ending up in relationships where you have to be the one showing up, where you have to be the one that is strong but very unsupported, where you are very loyal but you're depleted, where you're committed but you're carrying the whole wild world in your hands and in your back. And listen, none of this means you're broken. None. Please extend yourself some grace. It just means, as I've said again and again and again, your love patterns were shaped by survival. But survival is not the way God designed for you and I to live. He came so that you may have life and life in abundance. So my invitation for you is simple today. Stop choosing from your wound and start choosing from wisdom. You can learn how to receive. You can learn how to rewire your love patterns. You can learn how healthy and what healthy relationships and covering looks like. And you can stop turning relationships into projects that you have to manage. I want you to choose, attach, and stay in relationships without losing yourself this year. If you're tired of carrying, tired of overfunctioning, tired of repeating the same cycles with different faces, then I want you to get help. You don't need to do that again this year. You don't need another relationship to prove anything. You just need clarity. You need healing, and you need to learn new patterns. That is all I had for today. I hope this was helpful. Send this to a firstborn daughter who needs to hear and have language for what she's been carrying all through. And until next time, I love you deeply, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye-bye. Take care of yourself.